Adrian Cole wasn't born ruthless, the world made him that way. Once betrayed by his closest friend, abandoned by people who pretended loyalty until the money ran out, he learned the one rule he'd never break again: trust no one. That he sat alone every night in his glass-walled office, the city blinking outside like an ocean of empty promises. His company, Cole Dynamics, was falling apart. Half his senior team had resigned after a financial scandal, investors were leaving, and whispers of bankruptcy filled the hallways. To the public, Adrian was still the cold genius CEO, but inside, he was fighting ghosts. Then, one day, a job posting went live: temporary project coordinator needed immediately. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't stable, and it didn't pay much. Almost no one applied except her. Elena Rivers, a freshly graduated economics major drowning in student loans and working part-time at a coffee shop, saw the posting and took a chance. She didn't expect to be noticed, not by a man like Adrian Cole. But when she stood nervously in front of his desk, clutching her resume, he barely looked up and said, "You're the only one who applied. You start tomorrow." That was how two broken worlds collided. From her first day, Elena noticed the chaos: departments that no longer communicated, employees afraid to speak, meetings filled with tension. The company had lost its heartbeat. Adrian barked orders, spoke in numbers, never in feelings. But beneath that icy surface, Elena sensed something familiar: exhaustion, fear, maybe even loneliness. She started small. Helping co-workers finish reports, organizing files that had been ignored, staying late not because anyone asked, but because she cared. Slowly, people began to respond. The air felt lighter. There were smiles again, cautious, but real. One night, as she typed alone in the dim office, Adrian's voice startled her from the darkness. "Why do you care so much?" he asked quietly. Standing behind her, she turned, meeting his tired eyes. "Because this place still has life in it. You just stopped seeing it." He didn't answer. But that sentence stayed with him. Over the next weeks, something began to shift. Adrian found himself watching her, how she treated everyone with kindness, how she handled pressure without complaint. She reminded him of who he used to be before the betrayals hardened his heart. Elena, too, saw glimpses of the man behind the armor, the one who checked employee rosters at night to make sure no one had been overworked, who stayed late not because he had to, but because he couldn't rest knowing his people were struggling. One afternoon, she was in the break room laughing with a junior accountant over spilled coffee. Adrian happened to pass by and froze for a moment. That laugh, it was something the building hadn't heard in years. For the first time, he smiled without realizing it. He started trusting her. Bit by bit. Letting her handle meetings, pitch ideas, even take charge of team rebuilding. For everyone else, Elena was just an intern. For Adrian, she was a reminder that hope could exist again, but trust is fragile, especially for a man who's been betrayed before. One morning, a confidential internal report was leaked to a rival firm. The evidence pointed to Elena. Adrian's blood ran cold. The board demanded her suspension. And though every instinct inside him screamed this can't be her, the past whispered louder. Everyone leaves. When he called her into his office, she looked at him with confusion that quickly turned to heartbreak as he said, "You're suspended until we complete the investigation." "After everything," she whispered, voice trembling, "you still think I betray you?" He couldn't meet her eyes. "I think anyone can," he said quietly. She left without another word. The silence she left behind was unbearable. The office felt colder. Projects started slipping. For the first time, Adrian realized how much of the company's heartbeat had been her. Days later, when a major client threatened to pull out, he dug through the data himself, desperate for answers. That's when he found the truth. The leak had been orchestrated by one of his trusted senior executives, the same man who'd stayed loyal during the last scandal. Elena had been innocent. Adrian's chest tightened. He called her number. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Weeks passed. The company teetered on collapse. Adrian didn't care about profit anymore. He just couldn't shake the image of her walking out, eyes full of betrayal he'd caused. Then came the shareholders' meeting. Everyone expected him to resign. Cameras flashed, questions fired. "Mr. Cole, will you step down? What about the leaked files? Is the company finished?" He stood there, silent, until he saw her, Elena. Standing quietly at the back of the room, hair tied back, wearing the same calm determination he remembered. She hadn't come for him, she came for the employees who still believed in what they built. He took a breath that felt like his first in months. "Before this meeting begins," he said, voice echoing through the hall, "I need to admit something. The crowd hushed. I made a mistake, he continued. The person I accused of betrayal was innocent. She was the reason we survived this long. The reason I began to believe again. He looked directly at her. Miss Rivers. Elena. I owe you more than an apology. I owe you this company's trust and mine. Whispers rippled through the audience. Cameras turned to her. Adrian extended his hand. If you're willing, I want you to lead this rebuild. With me. Elena froze. Everyone waited. Finally, she stepped forward, not for pride or revenge, but for the people she'd fought for from the start. She took his hand gently and said, if we rebuild, we do it right this time, together. That day became a turning point not just for Coal Dynamics, but for Adrian himself. Months passed. The company rose from its ruins. Departments flourished. The office buzzed with life again. Adrian began to listen more, laugh more, and for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of people walking away. Elena's leadership inspired everyone. She made people feel seen, valued, and heard. Adrian realized that she hadn't just rebuilt his company, she'd rebuilt him. One evening, after a celebration marking their best quarter in years, the two stood on the balcony overlooking the glowing city. The laughter of their team echoed from inside. Adrian looked out at the skyline. You know, he said quietly, I used to think trusting people was weakness. Elena smiled softly. And now? He glanced at her, a rare warmth in his eyes. Now I know it's the only real strength. She turned to face him fully. Guess it just took someone stubborn enough to make you see that. He chuckled, a sound lighter than it had ever been. Yeah, he said, voice almost a whisper, and I hope she never leaves. The city lights flickered around them like stars reborn. Inside, their team cheered, music filled the air, and laughter wrapped the building in something it hadn't felt in years, belonging, because sometimes, the greatest rebuild isn't of walls, companies, or teams, it's of the heart that finally learns to trust again.